Hi, this is Julia. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about something kind of personal. Why John and I are child-free. If you want the tea, stay tuned. So this is kind of a hard video to make, but I feel like it kind of needs to be put out there because I get asked this question quite a lot. I'm 48 and John is 60, but I still get this question all the time. Why don't you have kids? Why didn't you guys have kids? What's wrong with you? People kind of insinuate. And so I just want to share my perspective of why we never had children. This video is not intended for me to discourage anyone from having kids or making them feel bad for having them. This is just me sharing our personal reasons of why it just didn't happen for us. So number one is I didn't really enjoy my childhood. It wasn't a joyful time in my life, and it wasn't playful, adventurous, full of options. It just wasn't that carefree, fun-loving kid life. I didn't have that. A lot of the narrative growing up in my house was everything I wanted to do, we just couldn't afford it. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. And so I think there's like a deep subconscious thing in me. If you can't afford to have kids, you shouldn't have them, because I just felt constrained and restrained my whole childhood. Like I always had to just suck it up and just watch other people do things and hear about fun things, but not actually get to experience them for myself. If you can't afford to have kids, you probably shouldn't be having them. And that's just my personal perspective. And I think that comes from that childhood experience. So there's a lot of people out there who can't afford to have kids that have them and are doing great. But I think that was kind of traumatic for me, and that was just deeply in my subconscious that it's a big responsibility to have kids, and for children to enjoy their childhood, they have to have some flexibility and to be able to afford to do things. Number two reason was my father kind of made it clear that we were a burden, and my dad was a really hard worker, so I appreciate that. The one thing that I love about what he did for me when I was younger was he paid for me to have braces. And coming from where we were financially, that was a huge sacrifice on his part for me to be able to have that dental care. Every time I look at my straight teeth, I am so thankful that my father sacrificed and picked up and worked a third job so that I could have good dental care. But when you have 5 kids and every kid has dental care, over time, that just started to be such a burden for my dad. I can see why having this many children and having all these medical needs and wanting to play baseball and all these other extra costs started to just add up. And I think out of his personal frustration, I don't think that he did it to hurt our feelings or to make us feel bad, but I do remember feeling like I was a burden, a financial burden that he couldn't wait to unload. Number 3, I was the eldest in my family. And this meant I took a lot of roles. I was kind of, when my dad wasn't there, which he had worked 2, 3, 4 jobs sometimes, a lot of times he just wasn't there. So guess who ended up being the pseudo father? Me. And the pseudo psychologist and the pseudo best friend and the pseudo babysitter. So I wore a lot of hats as a kid that were responsible hats. And I think that's another reason why I didn't really enjoy my childhood. I kind of heard about a lot of adult problems, and I don't think that's fair for a child to hear all that stuff. I just remember feeling weighed down by the troubles of the adults in the household. To be honest, I'm still healing my inner child. I'm still discovering what it is I want to do, what I was created for. All those things weren't really imparted to me as a child. So I'm working on that now. Healing kind of came late for me in life. And I didn't want to be the kind of parent that was unhealed, heaping their burdens on the next generation. Number 4 is my parents didn't really create a culture of family legacy. That legacy wasn't really something that was imparted to us. We were kind of just left to figure out life on our own separately. We didn't have traditions that kept us together, which really broke my heart as a child. I really wanted to have things that would keep us together. That just wasn't a part of our family life. Unfortunately, my family is very spread apart. Everybody has their own family and their own husband and their own children, they're doing their own thing, and they're all wonderful people, but we all live very separate lives. And that makes me sad. I look at families who really have this community where they have traditions and they get together and they do this every year. I think it's a beautiful thing. But if parents aren't intentional about creating a culture that keeps a family together, then family doesn't really become a priority for the children. If it's not a priority for the parents, it's kind of passed down as an option, but it's not impressed upon an important option. I hope that makes sense. This is a big one. In my childbearing years, I was actually a stripper. So this is something I personally did not resonate with. That didn't actually line up with my moral code. I didn't feel good or comfortable about that. And there are people that strip and have children and their children are fine. I personally felt like I was so traumatized by my childhood. If I just added one more thing to the mix, that wasn't going to be good. I didn't want to live in a way that wasn't an example for my children. I didn't want to have children and say, don't do what mommy's doing, and that didn't feel right to me at all. So in my childbearing years, having a child was not even an option. Until I could get my life together, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. My husband is 12 years older than me, and he personally didn't want to have kids. And that was something that was important to him. And it's kind of interesting. As I began falling in love and getting to know John, and people were telling me, you're going to regret not having kids. You're really going to regret it. I started to think about it. And I prayed about it. I'm like, God, is this what you want for me? I just look at my husband, and he's so smart and he's so kind, and he's just the best person that I know. And I look out in the world and I see it's a dark place, and there's a lot of evil, wicked people out there. He actually technically would make a great father because he's such a good man. It takes two people to actually create a home. Even though I know that John would have been a great husband, having a child is also his decision as well. My father-in-law used to try and pressure me to accidentally get pregnant. And he used to say, that's how everybody does it. I just couldn't do that. I had to have John on board and us create a family together. I didn't want to do it on my own. And so we sat down and had a discussion, and I said, you know what, John, I feel like I'm late at life. I feel like I'm late to this game, but if you want to have kids, you're such an amazing person. I could have your kid, and we can do this. And he said, I really don't want to. And what can you do when somebody doesn't want to? End of story, right? There's my reasons. At the end of the day, I just think that being child-free has many stigmas against it. People judge us. Actually, we don't really owe the world an answer of why we've decided not to have children. I just want to say to anyone who asks people, maybe your intentions are kind and good and you mean well, but it can be a very painful question, because a lot of times people don't have kids because of their childhood. And so bringing that up is very painful for them to dodge the question or even answer the question honestly or go deep on that. That's something to consider if you are thinking of asking a question like that. Just make sure that you know the person really well, that you have a good relationship with them, because a lot of Christians actually say, but God said to be fruitful and multiply. I honestly feel that if I was called to be a parent, I would actually really, really want to be a parent. That would be something that I desired and dreamed about, and that would be something my husband would desire and dream about. And so I also believe that we can be fruitful and multiply in many areas of our lives. It doesn't have to just be having children. It could be mentoring kids, or being a great aunt, or it could be fostering a great, healthy, kingdom-minded business or ministry. So there's a lot of things that we can do as Christians to be fruitful and multiply that has nothing to do with bearing actual children. My hope is that we don't pressure people who aren't called to be parents to do something that they're not called to do. I wish you all the best, and I am so grateful that God has called me to be an aunt, because I love doing that. So I have a question for you. As a Christian, do you feel pressured to have children? What are your thoughts on this? I would really love to hear your comments below. And let's have a healthy dialogue, because I don't believe that being a Christian has to look the same. We all have different desires and dreams and goals and gifts. That might look different from one person to the next. Also, I really appreciate that you guys are stopping by and commenting and growing my channel and sharing my videos. I want to just say a big thank you to everybody out there. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.